Welcome to the Once Upon a Sunday Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts, Josh Kimmel, Dave Campbell, and Justin Bowerly.
Once Upon a Sunday Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and we are here talking about some AFC and NFC South division not matchups. We're not there yet. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. We're heading into week 2 of the preseason. I'm getting hyped. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I already completed a legit home league draft. Yes, before week 1 of the preseason. It's been bananas, but we're into the season. We have a special guest tonight. We don't have one of my hosts. We don't have my main man over here, Dave Campbell. We have Justin Bowerly. Let's bring this guy in. What's going on, Justin?
What's up? How's it going? Look a little different.
I said, let's bring in Justin, the guy with the luscious hair, the locks, the good-looking dude.
Oh no! I cut it all off.
That's all right. It's all right. I don't want to spend too much time on your hair, but you really insulted me when you said,
"Why?
You cut your hair off because it's hot."
Oh, yeah, it
now,
is.
I watch a lot of YouTube, watch a lot of Pokemon Go videos, honestly. And these players are playing up in your area. And they told me on their stream, it's hot, guys. It's 78 degrees today. F you. I mean, it's 108 degrees over here in Florida, mother effer. You think it's hot?
It's been in like the 80s and 90s lately. So
you see this? You see this?
Cut it.
It's
cut
hot.
it off. Cut it off. Nobody's making you keep your hair like that.
It's hot. It's hot. You know what's funny about hair, this topic? School started for us in Florida. My son has long hair just like I do, and he's in first grade. And he told me this morning, I want to cut my hair because all my friends think I'm a girl. And it made me rethink my life. I should cut my hair too. Anyway, we're live here on the Finstock Sports Network and, of course, OUSFF Pod. Make sure you go follow us there. Yeah, I see. I added it.
No, it says ready to go live.
All right. Well, make sure we're live on the Finstock Sports Network, of course. OUSFFpod.com. Make sure you check out our rankings. I updated my rankings right after week 1 of the preseason, like I said. But before we're babbling on, we have a guest, Justin. Let's get this guy in here. Guys, welcome in our guest, friend of the show, Tommy. What is going on, Tommy? How you doing?
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and put my hat back on because I'm well aware that I'm 38 years old, balding. I'm not letting it go yet. I get it. I'm like the Chris Jericho of podcasting. I'm just never going to let my hair go. But let me just do that real quick. While I do that, where can we find you? Where can our viewers find you? Sorry.
Yeah, man. So I'm Tommy Blair at FFTommyB on Twitter. I am the host of the Superflex Super Show along with John Hogue, the Superflex Dude. I also co-host on Dynasty Junkies every single week now. We're back to a weekly rotation with Andrew Hall, with Scott Sidlow, with Rocky Petrella. I'm also on Trade Addicts occasionally whenever Russ doesn't feel like recording. He just taps me in and I heed the call.
That's producer Jacob when Josh is just like, you know what, Justin, like I just can't do the show that I committed to for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you're on notice, Russ.
Hey, housekeeping news. I will not be here week 1 of the NFL, so
I know
it's
Justin's show.
Dave. It's going to be the entire Justin show. He's going to run it. So I'm sorry for all you viewers and listeners.
We're going to get off to a great start because the last time I hosted the show without you guys, we like tripled our subscription. So we
doubled. We went from
like 94 to like 210.
Literally all I had to do was miss a show. So if that's what it takes for me to get more subs on this platform, I will miss all the shows, like literally all of them.
Josh will just be an executive producer of the show and just like never on screen anymore.
Yes. Have you guys been watching Hard Knocks?
I haven't. I was watching the offseason one for a while with the Giants, and it was such a bumbling mess. I realized it's an oversaturated product at this point, and I don't need that in my life. There's too much going on to spoil football with that garbage. Is the in-season version any better?
I've never seen any in-season versions or the off-season version. I've only watched the traditional Hard Knocks throughout
training camp. It's the off-season one.
Yeah.
Well,
The
no.
training
Was
camp one,
there
yeah.
was one with the Giants that was like maybe a month or 2 months ago, right? You remember that
I
one?
thought that was just. Oh, I didn't even.
Yeah,
That
that
makes
was the
more sense
Giants. Then
because
we're
the
talking
preseason
about
hadn't started yet. Yeah,
yep. And then there's the in-season one.
I
Like the Cardinals did that. Now we're talking about the traditional one.
I
I
watched the
always watch
Jets
it.
one last year, well, I watched the Colts one, of course, a couple of years ago because it was the first in season one. That was cool, but
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one.
I haven't watched any of this season, but I usually watch it. I totally forgot about it, guys. I'm not even gonna lie. This is the first season in about 4 or 5 years that I just completely don't go on social media. So I don't get to see the clips to get me hyped to go watch the show. I'm sure there's clips out there. I'm sure there's like inserts and stuff, but I have no idea what's going on. So I definitely need to watch that. I was just curious. Let's get into the news because we have a lot of it, and I don't want to babble for too long. CeeDee Lamb still holding out for a new contract. There's apparently tweets of him LOLing his boss, which is never a good sign. If I LOL my real life boss, I don't want to be employed much longer.
oh man, I'm sorry to
This
hear that.
Jerry Jones situation and him. I'll start with Tommy.
Yeah, see, my concern is less CeeDee Lamb. I think this deal is going to get done. I trust Pretty Ricky. What he says has come true more often than not, and I'm going to believe that the Joneses are going to do the right thing. My concern is with Dak Prescott. Is he going to be on this team for any portion of this CeeDee Lamb contract beyond this year? If not, he's kind of in Siberia, something that we're facing with Justin Jefferson right now, where we have to be concerned, is he going to be getting this 175 high quality targets? Because Dak Prescott, no spoilers here, but he was tied for the highest completion percentage of accurate passes. This is a good quarterback in Dak Prescott. It's somebody that I think the industry has underrated for too long. And without a Prescott throwing the football, CeeDee Lamb is not a wide receiver, one overall potential caliber player, in my opinion.
That's fair. Those are all fair points. And if he does lose Dak, that's going to take a huge hit to CD's value in fantasy. That I 1000% agree. His ceiling would be capped. Of course, he would never be the wide receiver one overall, in my opinion, and it sounds like Tommy's opinion as well. I do think he'd be valuable as well. I see this NFL where you see Garrett Wilson have outstanding weeks with Zach Wilson still. We saw Justin Jefferson, what he did when he came back playing with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs with subpar quarterback play, still was the wide receiver 2, I believe, in that time when he came back. CD was number 1. So it can happen. It's just very, very unlikely. I cannot stand rostering a wide receiver in Dynasty. And I know we're talking redraft right now, but in Dynasty, so especially when the receiver's a stud and you just know he has no quarterback, like zero quarterback. Justin, are you a little bit concerned about Dak leaving as well?
No,
Oh.
I'm truthfully not. When was the last time we saw one of like the top 5, top 10 quarterback, not top 5, sorry, top 10 quarterbacks go to a new team?
Okay. I will rebuttal this because if Dave was here, he would say the same thing I'm about to say. Because me and him have talked about this off air. I believe, and Tommy, disagree with me, please, if you think so. He is Kirk Cousins. He is Kirk Cousins.
Okay,
I could
And
buy that.
I could get
He's
behind
also
that too.
he's maybe Aaron Rodgers too. We've got 2 examples in the last 2 years. It's easy to cast Rodgers aside, but he was a 2-time MVP winner. That's a quality quarterback in my opinion, and Dak is certainly in that tier.
yes, so it does happen, or it can happen. We'd like it not to happen. When Tom Brady left, I know different situation. He was a lot older, but when he went to the Buccaneers, he's so smashed. I can easily see Dak leaving and moving on and doing something else with his career. It wouldn't be very, very. What can I say? If you're a player and you're looking at Dallas as a destination, and you see this going on with of course CeeDee Lamb, then they're treating Dak all the sorts of way, then they took forever to sign Zeke. Like it seems like they have a problem in the front office, as we all know. And if you're a free agent, why would you ever want to go there? Someone told me, I believe yesterday, that they never spend money on free agents. Well, I wonder why, because nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to deal with this circus. And that's just, something that we have to deal with. I hope CD gets into camp, bro, soon. I hope CD plays. He's being drafted 101 everywhere. This is a disaster.
That said, when he is in camp, or excuse me, when he does report, it's business as usual, right? Don't you guys agree that 150 plus targets are on the way for CeeDee Lamb? I don't have any concerns about this holdout maybe causing some sort of soft tissue injury or some sort of fitness issue. He's probably going to be good to go as soon as he gets his cleats on the ground, right?
Yeah, we would hope so. I would think so. He's not. This isn't like a Le'Veon Bell situation where he just sat in Miami and ate Burger King and chilling on jet skis,
Yeah,
right?
no, I think he's taking care of his body. I think he's gonna be fine. I mean, as soon like once the season starts, he's gonna show up. Like just like Jamar Chase is gonna show up, just like well Brandon Ayuk, but we'll talk about him in a minute. Uh, the, the top guys, they're gonna play when it comes down to it. He's trying to hold the cards that he's got to get a new contract and it's tactics. I mean, it's the same thing that we said about Jonathan Taylor last year. I'll keep harping on this. He wasn't going anywhere. Like things worked out. Everything got done.
Yes. Next news: Jahmyr Gibbs suffered a hamstring injury during practice on Monday. This right here is news. So I'll pass it off to Justin first. Is this news to you, or do you think he'll be fine for week 1?
I think we're fine right now. Hamstring issue is never fun. Um, See Christian Watson last year. That does suck. But he's not a player that's, running 70 yards down the field every play or 40, 50 yards down the field every day, every play. They are in a 2-back system. So him and Montgomery share that load. It's not like he's the premier, like gets 90% of the workload and then somebody else comes in for 10% of the time. I'm not as worried about Jahmyr Gibbs with a hamstring issue as I would be like if Christian McCaffrey had a hamstring issue at 30 years old or one of the other, I'm the lead back. I'm the only back we have. It's week 1 of the preseason or week 2, whatever it is now.
When you've got 15 to 20 car crashes every single week, we kind of forget this in the offseason. This is just practice, y'all. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of many running backs who is going to get injured throughout the course of the season. Of the top 24 backs, half of them miss at least 4 games every single year. It's just a sneak peek of what we need to prepare for going into our seasons. And so what I want to ask y'all is, what are you doing if you've completed your redraft and you roster Jahmyr Gibbs? Is there a backup running back that you're targeting?
So we just had our real draft on Saturday, longest running draft, our seat league of all time. And it's ridiculous. We did it, Dre. It's ridiculous that we did it. And someone did draft Gibbs and he's a huge Lions fan. And I told him that. We all told him that. And, but whatever. But he is panicking that one of my league mates, he doesn't know what to do. Here. And the only thing I could tell him what to do is you got to go out there and don't go out there and get like the backup for him. Don't get the backup for Montgomery. Don't get the third string running back on the Lions. That's not going to work out. See if you can work the waiver wire. Try to find a guy like a Tyler Algier, who we may talk about later, or a Sean Tucker from the Buccaneers, who's going to get some play. Try to get some of these guys that, we all think it's Bucky Irving over there. No. Try to get the guys that we know for sure are the number 2 on the depth chart, like a Sean Tucker, who's not being drafted. Tyler Algier is being drafted very late, if ever. Yeah, that's what I would do. Just focus on the backups that will be the starter if the other guy goes down.
I mean, we're if we want to go back to like last season, even the draft doesn't. I mean, yeah, it definitely sets you up for the right path. But thinking about running backs that we saw on the waiver wire early last year, the number 1 guy in week 2, we had Kyron Williams, who was only rostered in 7% of the leagues in week 2 or heading into week 2. And then the next week, he was rostered 62% of the time. We saw guys like Jerome Ford come up. I mean, Zach Moss was there.
Yeah,
Puka Nacua is a wide receiver. It happens all the time. There's going to be waiver wire picks. You don't know about them yet. None of us do. But they're there. And the thing is, like, you have an injury, your team is your team. Like, if I have Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm not going to worry about it until it gets to week 1. And then if week 1 happens and he's still hurt, okay, maybe I might worry. Then I'm going to go to the waiver wire and find my new guy because there's going to be guys there. It's a 32-team league. There's at least 32 quarterback or running backs, and there's only 12 teams that maybe have 2 two starting running backs going. So, I mean, the chances of a starting running back being on a bench is good. But having then also the backup or the second back in a 2-back league that every team has 2 backs, I think those chances are high, especially on the waiver wire. So I'm not super worried. I think you could find somebody week 1, week 2 of the waiver wire.
Tommy, I got to ask you something.
Yeah.
Mind if I ask you something, Tommy? So we brought up strategies of drafting super early, like before preseason week 1. In that situation, how would you change the way you draft later in the rounds, like later in the draft, because maybe the running back injuries are very high in preseason, so you might want to back in that with a bunch of backup handcuff type running backs, or are you just thinking, maybe I'll just draft 4 top guys in, so if one goes down, I'll have 3 other top guys. How would you do that?
I think it's a great question, and it obviously depends on the number of teams in your league and the number of starting requirements, all that type of stuff. But the way that I typically build my teams is to be anti-fragile at running back, to build in some of those backups that you were talking about, knowing that injuries are going to occur. And when these positions clarify, when the backup is known to ascend to a starting role, they really do produce almost the same as a lot of the starting running backs, Christian McCaffrey excluded. So what I like to do is just embrace the fact that this is kind of a train wreck of a position. And we don't know what we don't know yet. And so I'm going to draft Jahmyr Gibbs, knowing that I'm probably only going to have him for at most 10 to 12 games throughout the year. That's an optimistic approach. He's just cycling through his injury window earlier in the season. And I'm just going to say, okay, I have to draft a little heavier at running back, knowing that.
Got it. I like that. I like that strat. We're going to skip one. We're going to go right into one of the main guys, Brandon Ayuk. Justin, Brandon Ayuk, the saga is over. We don't have to talk. I hope this is the last time.
It's not officially over. It's not officially over.
It's not officially over. I just hope this is the last time I have to talk about Brandon Ayuk.
I would love it if we could stop showing this graphic every week, every show. Because every show there's always news out there. He reported a practice today. He practiced. He had a cutoff 49ers red shirt on. Everything looked great. Insider. Our 49ers insider said he's just waiting for the deal to be announced at this point.
We have an insider?
We I'm calling him the insider, man. Everything about Brandon Ayuk, I go to him. He hears it all. No, I've got a screenshot of the deal that he says is going to be a thing, and if it is a thing, I will post it with the timestamp and say, "Look, man, we knew it all along."
We have an insider. Who would have known?
We have an insider.
Who would have knew?
For
OUS Fantasy. We got less than 200 subs. We got an insider. Who would have knew? I'll tell you what. This is off topic.
Pretty Ricky, who? I'm sorry.
No, I love the guy, but I will say this. I'm not going to humble brag real quick, but I knew Bruce Arians was getting hired before it was announced. I officially have an insider for the Buccaneers, just in case any of you guys want to know, but I'm not going to humble brag too much. If you know an insider, I know an insider, buddy.
So what was that about Kyle Trask going to be the starting quarterback?
I never said that. Go back, because you can, on this darn planet, I have always said, and you can ask Josh Wingate, and I know he's going to pop in here soon. Kyle Trask will never. I said he will never start. Go to my Twitter when I used to tweet. Kyle Trask.
I'm gonna find that video tonight.
Will never ever play a meaningful snap in the NFL. I said that on tape many times. So don't bring that to me. Don't
Tommy, when I tag you in a tweet later tomorrow, probably because I'm not gonna do it tonight. With a video of Josh saying the Buccaneers want to see Kyle Trask play.
I said they want to see.
Baker's not gonna start.
I said they want to see him. Oh, get out of here. All right.
We'll send it to fantasy receipts. Can I ask y'all something though?
Yes,
Is there a lesson to be learned from this Brandon Ayuk situation as a redraft player? What should we take from this and carry forward into next season, maybe when we're faced with the same situation, just a different name?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think the studs are gonna stud. I mean, like Brandon Ayuk, in all intents and purposes, is apparently one of the studs of the league. I've been saying this for a while now. He wants to be paid top 3 money for top 12, 15 talent, in my opinion. I don't think he's a top 10 wide receiver in the league. A lot of people do think it. He certainly thinks it. But I'm not worried about this at all. It's not like a Le'Veon Bell situation where Le'Veon is just like, I'm not going to play if you don't pay me. Brandon Ayuk will play. I've been saying that for weeks. Ayuk will play, Chase will play, CD will play. They're all going to play. It's just where at this point. And I think for Ayuk, it was where. Now, the interesting situation here is that it was either going to be the 49ers or the Steelers. And I will be honest, he is much more attractive as a 49er than he would be as a Steeler, because I don't trust Russell Wilson. I haven't since like 2019. So that is a little cautious. So as a redraft player, if you had to draft and the news isn't settled yet, I'd be a little cautious about taking him, to answer your question. But I don't draft for another 3 weeks, so 2 weeks. So hopefully the deal's done, and then I can take him in like the 3rd or 4th round.
So if you've been watching this show for a very long time, I'm very skeptical about suspensions, holdouts. I will always, when Deshaun Watson was coming out, of course, when he was draft him, when all that stuff was Rashee Rice this season, I made videos that got us banned on TikTok. Draft him, right? They're not going to draft him. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm always a big thing of like, just draft him. Because besides Peterson, when he did the child stuff, I won't say it on YouTube, and
don't get us banned off YouTube.
I'm gonna try one day, probably.
We'll take down the video and censor it.
And Ray Rice, those are the two hardest and fastest penalties that there was in the NFL, I believe, and I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. People in the comments, let me know. But we always see even Kamara. It took a year and a half or anything to happen. It feels like. I'm sure it was only a year. That's why I'm saying in holdouts. I know we're talking about suspensions, but holdouts as well. Besides Le'Veon Bell, when has it ever worked out for the player? Well, it has always worked out because they get paid. Always get paid. There's always a deal done. There's always, because they are the demand. They are the person that needs to be there. The ownership knows it. The management knows it. The coaching staff knows it. The players know it. Everyone knows it. The player himself knows it. So I always go bet on the play. If they're betting on themselves, you should bet on them too. And that's how I feel about the situations.
The last one that hurt us as redraft players but helped the player, in my opinion, is Zeke Elliott. And that was a few years ago now, sort of at the peak of these ludicrous contracts that running backs were getting. He was the last one. And I know Zeke is back with the Cowboys, but he carries right now the largest dead cap hit of any running back in the NFL. And it's not because of his current contract. It's because of his last one.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah.
Are the Cowboys still paying him from his last contract?
Yeah. He has the highest cap hit in the NFL at the running back position because of his last contract.
That's amazing. That you're still getting paid for the job that you left.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's amazing.
He's a Hall of Famer and he deserves it, in my opinion. But that's just me. I'm a Zeke fan over here. All right. Hollywood Brown suffered. I can't say that word, Justin. Sternoclavicular joint dislocation. Can you just say clavicle? Yeah.
Didn't he basically his collarbone, I assume?
Yeah.
Right.
Dislocated Saturday's preseason game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's what the news says. Was at a local hospital being checked out. Man, those Jaguars are dirty.
Hey, now. I heard this was kind of like a car crash. It's sort of the same impact and recovery timeline from jamming your clavicle in a car crash, which sounds incredibly painful. But Tyreek Hill had this a few years ago, and I think he had like a 6-week recovery period, and he was back on the field doing Tyreek Hill things. And so I would imagine Hollywood will be limited for a while. But by midseason, I'm expecting Hollywood to be darting down the field, catching 30-yard bombs from Patrick Mahomes, trying to break that umbrella coverage.
Yes.
Hollywood will be back to doing Hollywood things. I don't know if it'll be the things that you just said, but Hollywood would be back doing Hollywood things. You are certainly correct on that.
And I had high hopes for Hollywood Brown. I really did.
Somebody has to.
I still do. We do. Tommy, you have high hopes for this. You just said it. You just said he'll be back.
I'm sorry. I'm still really hurt at what he did to me in 2019. What I did to myself in 2019. So
It's not a bad bet right now at acquisition cost. I mean, you're buying into the offense, the Chiefs offense, the fabled Patrick Mahomes offense with some hope finally. We've been burned by Sky Moore and all these other trash cans, Kadarius Toney, etc. I don't know. Hollywood's done it a few times. He could be 1,000-yard receiver. And from the depths that you're drafting him, that's a huge win in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen him do it with Lamar. We've seen him do it half seasons with Kyler before he gets hurt. That's a problem. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay on the field? Can he stay useful? And well, we've seen that coaching staff, if you're just not good and you're not producing, you're moving down the depth chart. We've seen it with CEH. Look at the rise of Isaiah Pacheco. They're not afraid to play the players that play well. Look at Jarrett McKinnon, 29, 30 years old. Who cares how old he is? He was playing well at that time. They just rode with him. So if Hollywood's not staying healthy and not producing, maybe they'll move on to Rashee Rice, get a bigger role. I mean, I'm sure he's going to have a huge role anyway. But you get what I'm saying. He's going to show out if he's healthy. I'm not moving. I got one more talking point, Justin.
Oh my God.
It has to. It's breaking news. People thought this kid was going to start for the Vikings. People
Oh,
thought.
you're okay.
People
Are we
thought.
really going to talk about him, not the other one?
No,
The Vikings had a tough day today.
Yes, the Vikings had a tough day overall, right? Overall,
tough
bad
day.
times. That's why
I don't know who
Dirtbag
the
Dave
third
isn't here
person is.
tonight.
Who's that third person that Sean mentioned?
I don't know. But I do know this for a fact.
know.
Our other host here, Tommy, is a huge Vikings fan, like massive Vikings fan. He canceled tonight because he's probably crying in his pillow. He's 1,000%.
That was horrible.
And Dave, if you're watching, buddy, get ready because the Pac-12 championship's coming tonight after this podcast. I'm gonna whoop your ass. We play in an
some breaking
NCAA.
news, guys.
What happened?
Kay Adams quote tweeted my tweet.
Oh, nice. That's awesome, man.
Look at you, superstar. Anyway,
I'm gonna retweet that so you can all.
Freaking celebrity. Anyway, JJ McCarthy confirmed tear in the meniscus of his right knee, set to undergo surgery. It could potentially be, not potentially. He is out for the year. Sucks because he looked good in preseason week 1. I mean, we assumed Sam Darnold was going to play until the wheels fell off, until he physically or mentally could not play anymore, until he was seeing ghosts out there. So big news, no news, news. Tommy, what do you think about this?
It doesn't change a lot for me, especially in the redraft formats. The good players, the elite players are going to do elite things regardless of who's throwing them the ball. Does it limit ceiling a little bit? I mean, probably, but there's a pretty wide range of variance that we're already experiencing with this rookie quarterback. If we're moving to Sam Darnold, it's kind of, I don't know, same story, different name. I am a little bit lower on Addison, assuming he is a running human being over the next month or so. I'm a little higher, though, on Aaron Jones. I'm wondering if this is going to boost Jones' PPR capacity. If the compression of the field is going to factor in and Jones is going to get an extra 2 or 3 targets a game, especially with TJ Hawkinson coming back slow this season. I'm a little bullish on Aaron Jones. What do y'all think about that?
Man.
Dave is really missing out tonight.
Listen. About Aaron Jones. Yes. I do like his situation and everything that can go down there. But I think this is JJ, honestly, to the moon. If Addison is not good and not right, I know we're just talking about Aaron Jones, but I'm more focused on him in that offense. I can miss out on Aaron Jones. I'm totally fine with that. There's about 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 more Aaron Jones I can get in the draft in that same position. That's how I lump him in there. I'm more excited about Justin Jefferson being all alone, by him lonesome. No Hawkinson, no this. That's what I'm looking at, Minnesota. Now, I know I spun your question and I gave you a different answer. Justin, I'll let you go for it because honestly, Aaron Jones is just a guy, but I'm excited for his upcoming, if he gets the targets. Is Sam Darnold going to check it down? That's my only thing. Is he going to be the guy who checks it down or is he going to play hero ball?
I think Sam Darnold has to, this is kind of his career on the line at this point. Like if he can't make it out of this, then where's he gonna make it? I mean, and we saw how Sam himself saw it in San Francisco, how Purdy has made a career of going, hey, CMC, like He's got it. Like, he's not going to air every ball out to Justin Jefferson. He's going to be covered. He can't air it all out to Hawkinson. Can't go all at. Like, Jones is the target right there, and he's made a career out of that with the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. So I would assume that Aaron Jones will get the ball from Darnold because Darnold's going to want to pad those stats a bit, and that's going to get him yards. It's going to get him completions. It's going to help everything. So, I don't want to say a lot of great things about Aaron Jones because I'm not going to draft Aaron Jones, but maybe he's a sleeper. But we talked about North sleepers last week, so I think he's going to get the ball. It's just he's got to stay on the field. That's what I'm more worried about. Aaron Jones is he has to stay on the field.
Did y'all watch the quarterback show on Netflix a couple of years ago?
No.
So in that, Kevin O'Connell, the head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, he explained some of the progressions that Kirk Cousins was supposed to be working through and having some difficulty with. And it was mid to short to deep. I could see that accelerating a lot quicker if we have double coverage on Justin Jefferson every play, because who else is going to be in the route tree? And so I see a higher target volume. And like you said, it is kind of a swamp of this guy or that guy at the running back position. Just pick one. But I think that there is a little bit more ceiling potential there. We don't need to get hung up too much on Aaron Jones, though.
No, I 1000% agree. There is a world that it could happen. I just don't want to live in that world.
That's fair.
I just don't want to live in that. If I leave any draft with Aaron Jones on my team, I'm pretty upset. Or I'm happy because he's my running back 5. All right, let's get into the AFC and NFC South. We have a ton of positions to get through. I don't know why you guys listen, I might have missed the text thread. It's all good. We're going to start at the quarterback position. Don't give me a look, Justin.
What are you confused about now?
I just like messing with you, dude. All right, we got the quarterbacks, the stud quarterbacks of the AFC and NFC South, according to OUSFF, is CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. A man who's only played 4 games in this league is considered a stud.
Let's talk about the other person first, who the graphic is up, is CJ Stroud. He clearly, we don't have to go back all the time where we say Josh Wingate was correct about CJ Stroud, and he was the first one on it. CJ is great. I think CJ is the best quarterback in the division. Sorry, Tommy. It's not going to be Trevor Lawrence. You're not going to hear me say that. But I think Stroud has been very good. Sophomore slump, maybe. Could happen. But they did surround him with more talent. Tank Dell's going to come back. They got him Stephon Diggs. They got him Joe Mixon. So in all signs, like, CJ Stroud should progress even better this year. I don't have a lot more to say about CJ Stroud. As I don't know about you, Tommy, but as a Colts fan, I get a lot of hate from Titans fans specifically about Anthony Richardson. And I'm like, why are you worried about Richardson when we got CJ Stroud to deal with?
And it's legit too. CJ Stroud progressed. If you look at the first 4 weeks of the season, he was doing okay things. And then he just hit the booster button and was incredible. Mm-hmm. He was diagnosing the field, getting the second and third read. He was creating more diverse concepts for his wide receivers and leading them so much more effectively. So he's the real deal from an NFL perspective. If we want to turn the talk to fantasy, though, especially in redraft, I love the player. I don't love his current cost. And so I do have a little bit of hesitation with his current ranking somewhere in the QB 4 or 5, sometimes 6 range, depending on which ranking system you're looking at. There are so many good running quarterbacks a little bit lower than CJ Stroud that what you're doing is you're making a bet that Stroud is going to throw for 4,500 yards and 35 to 40 touchdowns. That would do it. That would put him in the very elite tier. And we've seen it before in the second year with some of these quarterbacks. I'm thinking like Andrew Luck, who also had the rushing potential, but really his arm was doing amazing things. And if I'm going to create a throwing comp, that would be it, is Andrew Luck. That said, that doesn't happen very often. And so I'm a little bit hesitant, y'all, with this call, because I don't want to bet on a pocket passer at this current QB4 or 5 ADP.
You are 1 bajillion% correct. You're banking, if you draft CJ Stroud in a 1 quarterback league at his ADP, you're banking that he's going to throw for 45 touchdowns. And you're banking that he's going to be perfect and play every game and not get hurt and, add 0 to the rushing attack, but throw 400 yards a game, which we know it's just not going to happen. The one saving grace for me, and I know I'm in the minority, is Stephon Diggs is now there, and he's going to be the true number one alpha that he maybe needed. I believe that Nico and Tank are awesome. I really do. But I don't think either of them are number one alpha. I debate whether we'll get there with a wide receiver position, I guess, when we get there. But I will say every time Stephon Diggs shows up to a locker room in that first season, that honeymoon season, I know we only seen it once with Josh Allen, but he did get there with Kirk Cousins. It's awesome. It's like meeting your girlfriend for the first time, and you guys are every night. You got whatever. I didn't say it. I'm not getting this banned, but you're going to the movies, you're going on dates, you're going to the Olive Garden, you're having this is the best year of my life, right? And then reality sets in, and you realize Stephon Diggs sucks, and he's a bad person, and he should be off your team. And then he ruins the locker room. It happens. It's just a cycle. I kid, I joke. That was a dig for Dave, but I will say, I think that Diggs will bring in that energy and will elevate him, but man, how high? Not that high. I'm not that high, and I don't want to draft CJ Stroud that high. Can we move on to the quarterback that only played 4 games?
But his points per game were astronomical.
Points per game. Remember that gun?
Per quarter.
who was that running back for the Patriots who ran for like 200 yards and 4 touchdowns? His points per game that season was phenomenal. Yeah. Who was that? Jonas Gray?
Jonas Gray. That's the man.
Yeah, Jonas Gray. He scored 60 points per game that year. I'm just saying it. I'm just throwing it out there.
Anthony Richardson, QB6. His ADP is 6. That's not even like that's Fantasy Pros right there too. I'm pretty sure, at least the ADP is. A lot of people have high hopes. And we just talked about this. Like if we're drafting him in a 1 quarterback league, like CJ Stroud, you're expecting him to get all the passing touchdowns because he's going to stay in the pocket. Anthony Richardson isn't going to stay in the pocket. They're not going to limit him to only throwing the ball. I think his greatest weapon is his athleticism and his ability to get outside the pocket and actually make some moves. Yes, there are concerns about him staying on the field. There's concerns with everybody staying on the field. But him getting open into the open field, taking more hits, it's going to potentially, I mean, that percentage does increase on injuries. So am I worried about it? Whatever. You play fantasy to win the game, though. And if you want to win the game, you want the guy that's going to score a lot of points, both on the ground and through the air. And in the division, it's Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. You look at avoided sack rate in college and how it translates to the NFL. It's one of the stickiest stats from college. And Anthony Richardson was absolutely fantastic until he got to the NFL. And then he stunk. He's one of the few quarterbacks where this did not translate. And so what I'm taking that as is a bid for more ceiling. I think that he could improve at avoiding these negative plays, keep the Colts on schedule a little bit better, especially with Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. We never really saw that last year, did we? Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor sharing a backfield. I have really high hopes. I'm a little concerned about losing Josh Downs because he was a really promising rookie. So we're 1 weapon down going into the season already. But Anthony Richardson is a physical marvel. He's tested in a way that no quarterback in the history of the NFL has at the combine. And I'm excited for what this ceiling is. In a 1 quarterback lead, this is the type of target that I want to shoot for, because if you're wrong, what do? You go to the waiver wire and you get somebody else. If you're right, you've got a potential league winner like Lamar was a couple years into his career.
And you can ask producer Jacob this. When we saw him when we went to the combine, we saw the first group of quarterbacks and we're like, it was Will Levis. It was Will Levis and a bunch of scrubs. We're like, okay, cool. Yeah. He's making the throws. Cool. Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud came out and you're just like, oh my God. I was 100% sold on him at the combine that Anthony Richardson was going to be somebody, not just like he's going to win people leagues. He was athletic. He was crazy fast. I mean, he was the fastest quarterback in a long time, and he didn't even run a straight 40-yard dash. Like he kind of curved a little bit. Like he could have been faster. He had the longest long jump, longest high. Like he was just an athletic freak. And that's the guy I want to roster because if he's healthy, he's going to win you leagues. But you don't want to be the guy on the other side who has to go against him in the championship, because if we get to that point, because you're going to lose.
You're gonna lose.
Gonna lose.
Good thing to know. I believe his bye week is week 14. Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud's bye week is week 14 as well. Terrible bye weeks. Awful. Just all honestly awful bye weeks. Ugh, gross. All right, let's go to the running backs. We have Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor as our 1A and 1B. These are phenomenal athletes. Bijan, will start with him. He's going in the first round in all of your fantasy leagues. If you missed the showdown, by the way, it is on YouTube, one of our shorts. We did a debate, Bijan Robinson versus Saquon Barkley. Where do you align? Go make sure you check that video out on our page. Bijan Robinson, I'm excited for the non-handcuffed version of him. Let's let him break out and see what he could really do, Tommy. Is there any more he could really do? Man, his stats were good last year. Gosh, they were good. Like they were. Go look. They were good.
Yeah, when he was given opportunities, he was actually fantastic. The underlying metrics are really encouraging. He just didn't get any usage. My co-host on the Superflex Super Show, he calls Bijan an infinity stone. He's one of those players that can just absolutely wreck a league. If you see him and, on your opponent's lineup, you're like, oh shit. Sorry. Oh shoot. He's going to score the equivalent of the worst thing that's been said. Sorry. He's going to score the equivalent of 2 running backs, right? Like I have to somehow find more ceiling in my lineup. And those are the types of players that you really want to seek out and find a way to get onto your roster. I would have no hesitation assuming something like 20 points per game in a typical PPR format season long with Bijan. He is going to have an incredible ceiling. I'm so excited. I think he's going to make us fall in love with running backs again.
Man, I hope you're right. Do you really want to see your running back? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking at I want this guy to be healthy and to be able to walk in 10 years situation. But 214 attempts last year, pretty decent usage. And I believe he was not looking at his stats, I think top 5 in targets. He was being used. There's a few games where it's like, okay, he's got a headache against the Buccaneers. I remember he had 2 carries that game. I remember that game. I'm like, okay, now I see the point. Like, okay, he had a headache. He was sick. Like, what was the situation? But man, I think given where he was last year, like that was his peak at that position because of his coaching staff, because of the direction they were headed, because of the quarterback situation. It was a disaster. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins and them open up everything. We're going to talk about Kyle Pitts in London later, I'm sure. Now, Justin, I won't spoil anything, but in that debate, I did say you could probably get this with Saquon maybe 12 picks later and get, whatever it is, it may be. Are you still hooked on Bijan being like your top guy? Are we looking forward to this?
I am. You mentioned his targets last year. He was second in the league for running backs and targets, 86 targets. He tied with Alvin Kamara. He was only behind Breece Hall, who had a quarterback that was literally dumping them the ball, literally like every other play. I would expect those targets to go up with an actual real head coach. He had 2 games that had less than 1 point. And he had 1 game that had just about 6 points. Every other game was double.
86 targets. I'm sorry. You really think he's going to get more than 86 targets? That's like CMC numbers.
The only thing that I worry about is the fact that Kirk Cousins airs the ball out. So maybe he doesn't. But either way, other than those 3 games, he's scoring double-digit points, and still with those 3 games limiting him, he still finishes RB9 in PPR format.
He was also limited in goal line touches. For some reason, Cordell Patterson was coming in once they were inside the 10-yard line. And that's just absolutely ridiculous.
All of that to be said, still finishes RB9.
Yeah.
He can only go up, like with a real head coach, right? Like,
I think so.
Am I crazy to think that?
No,
I'm not. I don't think I'm crazy to think that. So
you're not crazy at all. Next guy on our list, we have Jonathan Taylor. Of course, I think he's being super, super underrated and disrespected this year. He's still being drafted as the top guy, but ask around. Gibbs are being drafted above him some leagues. Bijan, of course, should be. Man, I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be that super sneaky running back that you get after all the top guys go, and you're like, wait a minute, guys, I got the same he's in the same tier, guys. Like, did you guys know this? I think that's going to happen a lot. Tommy, what about you?
Mine.
At cost, I think Jonathan Taylor might be the best running back in the NFL for fantasy football right now, especially in redraft. This player, Jonathan Taylor, had never missed he'd never missed a practice before coming into last year. And now we're labeling Jonathan Taylor as injury prone. I just don't get it. This guy has finished, albeit at a slightly deflated points per game. He finished as the RB1 overall just a couple years ago, and there was more meat on the bone. His expected fantasy points were higher than his actual fantasy points when he finished RB1. This is a competent offense now. The offensive line last year, they regressed a little bit. I think we're going to see them come back to a, 14th best offensive line. That's my assumption this year. And with that, Jonathan Taylor can eat against the AFC South because the linebackers are tiny in the AFC South. And so I'm assuming that we're going to get double-digit touchdowns. I think we're going to get 1,500 yards, a decent set of receptions. The only concern I have is the Anthony Richardson goal line carries. Is it going to limit his ceiling a little bit? We're just going to have to find out.
Yeah, I guess we will. Justin, I'm going to go ahead and skip your thoughts because we'll get them later.
I have no extra thoughts. Like Tommy said it all. I have nothing to say.
Let's move on to the wide receivers. We have Chris Olave and Big Mike Evans over here representing the NFC South. No, what happened to the AFC South? They ain't got no receivers up there. You guys, I heard of Michael Pittman. His upside was really high, like the highest upside you could possibly have. No,
You're
okay.
Still going on about that.
Hey, got us a subs. Anyway, Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints, PPR monster. Just to me, he's not going to get you those big 40-point games. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. Derek Carr really wants me to not draft this guy. I just look at that offense. I'm like, God, I don't want to touch anything over there. Everything's gross. Taysom Hill's coming in, these gadget packages and the goal. It's just awful. I don't want any piece of this offense, but I can understand the appeal of Chris Olave because he's just there. He is honestly hot dog and popcorn. When you go to the ball game, what do you get? Hot dogs and popcorn. He's right. He's just like right there, going to be a solid pick for you. So Tommy, am I crazy for kind of discounting Chris Olave?
He does a lot of things that Garrett Wilson does. They're very similar players. My problem with Chris Olave is not the player himself. The supporting cast around him, the infrastructure with the Saints, the cap situation with the Saints is just a hot mess. Derek Carr is an anchor, in my opinion, that is going to cap the ceiling of Chris Olave very likely. I mean, just last year we saw Alvin Kamara lead the NFL in running back targets with a suspension. That didn't happen by accident. That was Derek Carr's fault. Dennis Allen, the head coach, he's kind of a stinker too. Like, I just don't love what is around Chris Olave. I think if you magically transported him to, let's say, the LA Chargers, he'd be a top 6 wide receiver, but he's not. And I don't think he's going to be leaving anytime soon. And so really what you have to do is say, is Derek Carr going to do what he's never done? Is Jake Hayner or Spencer Rattler going to take over and actually provide some sort of floor and ceiling for Chris Olave? Is Rashid Shaheed going to actually deliver on the promise that we've seen this offseason and further cap Chris Olave? There's just a lot of question marks and a lot of things that I don't like. It's bad signal. And the wide receiver position is too good, in my opinion, too deep and too talented for me to make this bet at his current ADP.
Gotcha. I'm going to do a quick fire at you real quick. It's not on the sheet, so I'm going to do it. London or Olave?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to lean London. I just like the opportunity there a little bit more. There's stronger signal that he is an elite player despite his counting stats. His underlying metrics are fantastic, and I like the quarterback situation more.
Pittman or Olave?
Pittman, very clearly Pittman.
Staying in the South, okay. And the last one, who's the Jags one?
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I'm saying Kirk or Olave.
They're
about the same in my opinion, except Kirk is cheaper.
Gotcha. Justin, any thoughts on Chris Olave?
I don't. I was looking at our rankings and I was like, why do I have Olave so high? And I don't even understand why I have Olave so high, but even like adjusting my own rankings, it didn't bring him down any further than 10. So I don't know. I have London lower. I'd put London higher than Olave today if I really had to think about it more. And we got to adjust our rankings for the actual season because we haven't adjusted our rankings in probably
I did.
2
Don't say
months.
we.
Oh, my bad. I got to
I did that Monday, buddy. I did it Monday.
So yeah, I think London's ceiling's higher right now, especially with Kirk Cousins and being the number 1 target. I mean, yeah, you still have to deal with Kyle Pitts and stuff, but I'm scared of Derek Carr. I really am. There's not much more to say about that.
Tommy, Big Mike Evans, right? Ooh, touchdown machine, or Chris Olave.
Again, about the same. It comes down to acquisition costs and how you want to build your teams. Mike Evans has always been a touchdown monster, has always demanded a pretty decent target share, and his quarterback loves him. So at the current cost, slightly lower than Chris Olave, I'll take Mike Evans, but I'm pretty happy with either one. Neither one is going to change the fortunes of my team, but if I can get them below their current ADP, I don't mind scooping them up.
Yeah, look, Mike Evans is going. It looks like wide receiver 14 right now. That's what I'm looking at. I cannot. Oh, Olave's wide receiver 11. So yeah, I'd much rather have Mike Evans at that cost. I'm a big Mike Evans fan, as in he's gonna be 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns every year, and he's gonna be a top 15 receiver. He's just so safe. Whereas Olave is safe as well. He just doesn't have the long track record as Mike Evans, and we know Mike Evans is committed, or the Buccaneers are committed to Baker Mayfield now. Whether it be good or a bad situation, they are committed to him. So we know that for a fact. We don't know if New Orleans is sticking with their quarterback, as we said before. Are we interested in all at maybe Chris Godwin bugging Mike Evans a little bit, bringing him down a little bit? Because Chris Godwin only had 2 touchdowns last year, and was, I feel like, delegated to like very, very limited roles.
Well, he's in the moved out of the slot this year.
He's going back he's going back into the slot this year.
The big question is Jalen McMillan.
Okay.
And how does that affect that offense? Apparently it doesn't matter. So
Trey Palmer all over again. I guess we're doing that.
We got to move on, man. We got to move on. We're still in our studs. We said like 5 minutes on studs.
All right.
Rapid fire tight ends.
Rapid fire tight ends. We got Evan Ingram and Kyle Pitts.
I'll jump in here. Kyle Pitts is a screaming buy at his ADP. We've got this influx of young talent. We've got the old elite guys still producing, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. I think that this is just a victim of circumstance. Kyle Pitts still has that 1,000-yard potential. He is a big wide receiver. Get him at his current ADP.
Agreed, 1,000%.
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, you talk about Evan Ingram. Perfect.
Yeah. Tommy got to talk about Jonathan Taylor. I'll talk about Evan Ingram. Tommy, if you ever watch the show, you'll know I love Evan Ingram as a fantasy asset. I'm a big Evan Ingram truther. Tight end 2 last year. Tight end 5 the year before. He is, I don't care what you say, Trevor Lawrence's number 1 target on that team. He is the Mark Andrews of that team. Yes, they have wide receivers, but I would almost compare the Jaguars receiving core, including Evan Ingram, to be like the Ravens receiving core. Even with Calvin Ridley, I would even say that about Calvin Ridley. He could be the Zay Flowers, but he's gone. We don't care about him anymore. He's on that trash team in Nashville. Evan Ingram is the target. I mean, he is the target. I don't care what we say about Christian Kirk or Gabe Davis or Brian Thomas maybe could take that, but I think Evan Ingram is Trevor Lawrence's guy. He's proven it. 143 targets last year. You can't just take that away.
Yeah,
they've got Brian Thomas, but they got rid of Calvin Ridley. So even if he ends up with 133 targets, like he's still the number 1 guy on that team. I love Evan Ingram.
I agree. I've been getting him everywhere. I like his price. I do. If I don't get Kelce, I like to try to get Ingram.
Tommy, I hope that's what you wanted to hear from me.
No arguments from the Jaguars fan.
All right. Just like last week, which I think we should just prepare for this, guys. Now on 1 dud. We ain't doing 2. We ain't got time for that.
Yeah, we can't.
1 dud. From the AFC or NFC South, we're gonna pick 1 dud. We're all prepared with 2. So, Tommy, I'm gonna let you lead off. You could pick either of your dud. Just let us know.
I'm going to let y'all pick for me. So I've got two. Do you want me to rant about Kirk Cousins or Rachaad White?
Rachaad White.
Rachaad White. All right. This is a pretty easy case study. This is the most inefficient runner in the league last year. A horrible running back. He had 2.2% explosive runs, which is tied with Austin Eckler. He have the piano on his back. He's tied with Jamal Williams at zone run success rate at 40%. He's tied with Tank Bigsby and Austin Eckler at man run success rate at 42%. So more than half of the time, either zone or man concepts, he is failing as a running back. Despite having the 7th most opportunities inside the 5-yard line, he only had 4 rushing touchdowns. It's the worst rate in the league. He has bad draft capital. He has a low repeat rate based off of that draft capital, just like Dameon Pierce, James Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, Tyler Algier. We could go on and on. He also has more competition at the only thing that he's good at, which is catching footballs in Bucky Irving. And the running game is going to be siphoned off a little bit this year with Sean Tucker, who is healthy once more, and I think ready to take on, I don't know, a 20% rush share. They've also got Chase Edmonds. We don't know what's going to be happening with him, but it's just a muddy, bad backfield. And I think Rachaad White is being overdrafted right now. I think that a RB ranking of 14 is a landmine.
I'm not going to disagree at all, man. I'm really not. I can't. I love your line. You sold me when you said he's like the most inefficient running back in the league, which he 1000% is. I believe. What was his yards per carry? Like 3.3 or something? Some garbage.
It was horrible. And it wasn't for lack of opportunity. It wasn't like, oh, he was just getting in this situation or that situation. He had plenty of volume and is just a bad running back. He can catch a football pretty well, though.
Yeah, there's a reason why they drafted Bucky Irvin and they keep Sean Tucker and even Chase Edmonds, I believe, is still in camp. It's just, I don't think they really truly believe in Rachaad White over here, unfortunately. Yep. Justin, which dud are you? Can I pick your dud? I'm not going to let you pick mine. Just saying.
Oh, I'm so prepared to talk about one of these guys.
All right, we'll talk about the one.
No, go ahead. You tell me. I'll be just as prepared. You tell me.
I want to hear your case against my guy, my love, Christian Kirk.
Dang it. No.
Okay, DeAndre Johnson.
Wait, you said Christian Kirk?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm prepared for Christian Kirk. I'm prepared for Christian Kirk.
Okay, cool.
All right, just completely opposite of what I just said about Evan Ingram. He is not the guy. Christian Kirk is ADP wide receiver 31. We have him ranked as wide receiver 29. Last year, he finished as wide receiver 47, only playing 12 games, but he only saw 85 targets. Yes, Calvin Ridley was there. Okay, great. Calvin Ridley left. You think Christian Kirk? Okay, yeah, bump. Well, they went out and got Brian Thomas, and I'm sorry, but I think Brian Thomas is the elite wide receiver in Jacksonville. I didn't believe in Christian Kirk when he was on the Cardinals. I don't believe in Christian Kirk now when he's on the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a huge drop-off. Yeah, 2022, he was wide receiver 11, saw 133 targets. Then they got Ridley. His targets went down. Now they got Brian Thomas. Evan Ingram's still a thing. Again, we just talked about Trevor Lawrence having his number one guy, Evan Ingram. I don't think Christian Kirk's that guy. I don't see him producing. Apparently he didn't practice today, by the way, just saying that. It's not even like a time on the field thing. I mean, in 2021, his last year in Arizona, he finished as wide receiver 26 and played all 17 games. Before that, 52, 38, 58. He's never been a top tier guy. He had one good year. And I'll say this about Calvin Ridley. He had one good year, and we still consider him to be a top 10 guy, a top 15 guy. Like we don't on OUS, but the media does. So I'm sorry. But I don't see Christian Kirk as I think he's a dud. I'm sorry.
Can I offer a little bit of context? I do agree with you, but I don't think this is a matter of Christian Kirk being good or not. I think this is a matter of the offense as a whole last year having fundamental flaws. Trevor Lawrence had the highest first read throw percentage of any starting quarterback in the NFL. More than 3/4 of the time he was throwing to his first read. His first read was Calvin Ridley. And a lot has been made over the weird drops and just oddities whenever the ball got into Calvin Ridley's hand. But guess what? It was way worse because they weren't on the same page with the route concepts themselves. All of the option routes were just a hot mess. And so they led the league in off-target throws. It was the fact that they were stuttering as an offense because they were trying to force feed a player that Trevor Lawrence just did not jive with. It was like a bad date that lasted for 18 weeks in a row. And I think just by removing that, the offense will be more efficient. You don't have to give all of those targets that Calvin Ridley got to Brian Thomas Jr. or to Gabe Davis for this offense to operate much more effectively. So Christian Kirk can just do Christian Kirk things and still deliver on and above this ADP. But I agree with you. He is not an elite player. He's just a pretty good.
My worry is when he was wide receiver 11 in the league, he was the clear top target there. Yeah, you had Evan Ingram who finished wide receiver 5 that year, or I'm sorry, tight end 5 that year. But then you also had Zay Jones, Jamal Agnew, Marvin Jones, Tim Jones. Like, it wasn't like a star stud. Like, I would take Brian Thomas over the other 4 wide receivers that I just mentioned any day.
Sure.
I just think he's got more challenges to him on that offense. Brian Thomas is currently technically the wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville, but I think by the end of the year, he will be the wide receiver 1. He's just that dominant. And I think he will be that dominant. He's going to eventually Trevor Lawrence is going to be like, that's the guy I want to throw it to. Oh, hey, Evan, let me go back to Brian.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, if you're drafting Christian Kirk to be wide receiver 15 in the league, wide receiver 20 in the league, and we're talking wide receiver 2 on your fantasy roster, that's not going to be a good look. Maybe a flex. Maybe a flex.
That's not
but certainly a bench spot. And to me, if you're being drafted as wide receiver 2 and you're not even a flex player or you are a mid flex player, that's a dud to me.
Okay. All right. My dud, I'll just let everyone know. Be careful what you wish for because you might get Tony Pollard. Everybody wanted this. Everybody
can agree on this.
Everybody
I think
was
all
like,
3 of us can agree on this.
Dude, they're like, oh, unleash Zeke, right? Get him out of here. We got Tony Pollard. We got the man coming in, right? What'd the man do for you guys? Honestly, he wasn't that awful. All right. It's just the matter of maybe the offense wasn't really focused around him. And you guys drafted him as your running back 1, and he just wasn't. It wasn't all. He was a running back, low end running back 2 for the majority of the season last year, and it was kind of awful. He did average somewhat. Let me look at the stats: 13.1 points per game in fantasy. That's awful. We expected a lot more. Now he's going to a new team, 27 years old. And if you know me or follow the show at all, you know that I hate running backs that go to a different team when you're 27 years old. I can't stand it.
Except for CMC.
Except for CMC. Except for he and LaDainian Tomlinson, and that's it. I think there were Marshall Faulk. How old was Marshall Faulk when he went to the Rams? You were young. You don't know. You're young.
He was in his 20. I mean, he was in his 20, like early 20s.
Right,
I'm pretty sure.
All right. I will say this about Tony Pollard, Mr. Tony Pollard. Now he's going to a team where he's not going to get the majority of the carries like he did in Dallas. Who did he have in Dallas? He had a 5'2" running back as his backup. He had a guy who was never going to see the field in the NFL ever. And now he's going to a spot where we have hot Tajay Spears just waiting for his opportunity. We want him. Now he's the new Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's going to get Tony Pollard. 1,000%. We're all going to want Tajay Spears to come in here and take this role. Tony Pollard's on his last leg, I believe, in the NFL. I just don't see him succeeding in this offense with a Will Levis-led Tennessee Titans offense with all their aging. It just seems like that whole team is just an aging mess besides their mayonnaise-eating quarterback. Like, you look at them. They got Calvin Ridley. No one wants that bum. They got DeAndre Hopkins. I didn't know he still played football until I saw somebody drafted him in my league. I was like, wait a minute. He didn't retire last year? Okay, cool. Good for you guys. That whole offense is a mess. I know this isn't my best argument for why he's a dud. Just, we've seen it. We don't need it anymore. Tony Pollard's done. Stop trying to make Tony Pollard a thing. It's over.
I'm pretty sure, like, I feel like Tony Pollard has been on the Titans for like so long at this point, and he hasn't even played it down. Like, that's how over I'm on Tony Pollard. And I'm looking back at a show that we did back in March. It was We posted this on Instagram on March 25th, so it probably happened on the 25th or 24th. So if you want to go back to YouTube and listen to this, I think this was us predicting where Tony Pollard was going to go. I quoted, "He will not be a top 30 running back this year."
Yeah.
Period.
Simple.
And he finished 14 last year, 8 the year before that. He's not going to be top 30.
Part of the problem is you can get Jonathan Brooks kind of in the same tier. And so it's a bet on upside. You're saying, all right, I'm going to draft Tony Pollard somewhere, low end RB2, high end RB3. There are better bets out there. Younger players that have clearer opportunities to ceiling outcomes. This is just sort of shooting for a middle tier outcome. And that's just not what you want to do when you're seeking a 1 of 12 result. You want to win. It doesn't matter if you get 4th place. You want to win your league. Tony Pollard isn't necessarily the type of profile that you seek out to win.
1000% agree. With that being said, we do have one last segment on this extra edition of the OUS podcast. If you're still hanging around, thank you so much. Hit that like button. We are going to go into my favorite, the draft. We'll be drafting sleepers from each South division. Man, last we found out it was tough because there's only 8 teams. So keep that in mind when we're drafting some of these players. They might not be sleepers to you, but they are. Right? Like it's sleepers or not. We don't always have to go super deep dive the 5th string quarterback. It ain't happening. All right. So with that in mind, we're going to start off with our guest, Tommy. Who is your number 1 sleeper from the AFC South or the NFC South?
Yeah, the way I took this is if this person hits the ceiling side of their outcomes, who is most likely to change the context of your team and by extension your league. And so I think I might be sniping one of y'all here. I'm going to go with Tyler Algier because Bijan Robinson's backup is a extremely talented running back who's done this before. And not only has he done it before, this offense is really well catered to Tyler Algier. If we run into one of those injuries where one of the top 24 running backs misses 4 weeks or more, I think we could have an RB1 on our hands with Tyler Algier. And that is incredibly valuable at the depths in which you're buying him.
Yeah, that's my pick too. That's Justin. That's my pick. Write it down. Right. Nope. I'm scrambling for my second pick. So Justin, I'll let you go second.
Okay. So I was scrambling for my first pick, but it's fine.
I can do this draft, y'all.
No, I know my sleepers. You just took my first pick. I didn't think you were actually going to do it. But it's all right.
I'm going to go with a guy that we talked about in the dud section, but his guy. I'm going to take Bucky Irving. Yeah. Because I think once they get to the goal line, he's going to be in there more. Bucky Irving was really, really good in college. The fact that he went to a team that like he has to compete and he is not the clear number 1 yet is concerning, but I don't think the Buccaneers are. I think we're going to be looking at this next year and going, Rashad who? Like, just like we're like James Robinson who? Like, it could be a similar situation here where Bucky Irving eventually will take over this offense on the running side of the ball.
Well,
Josh,
since I'm gonna have zero analysis.
We took both your picks.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
I'm gonna have zero analysis. I'm just gonna say it with my chest. I'm going Sean Tucker because he's a better running back. He's better than Bucky Irving. He's gonna be the one that takes over that offense by week 6 or 7.
Okay,
Bucky Irving. It's gonna be Sean Tucker.
So Tommy
knows. Tommy knows. He's laughing. He knows.
No. What I'm gonna say here is last week we drafted like all the Packers wide receivers minus Jaden. No, there was
Bo
one.
Melton? Was it
except
Bo Melton?
For Romeo Dobbs? We drafted Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Dontavian Wicks. So obviously you have to draft. Chase
I'm just saying you picked the wrong one. That's all. Move along, Tommy.
Do y'all remember how enamored we were with Sean Tucker last year? Everyone loved him, and this could be a really good post-hype sleeper. So I really like that. I'm going to get real ugly with my second round pick here. Somebody that just will not go away. He's like a wart. Taysom Hill. He's been getting increased buzz, as he always does every offseason. But what I'm proposing you do in redraft is not draft Taysom Hill, is to draft a backup running back and give yourself a little bit of runway until the season kicks off, and you can pick him up off waivers, right? And he can be a week 1 starter for you. He's a pretty good placeholder at the tight end position. Somebody that is going to get all those weird touches, running back touches, receiver touches. Sometimes he'll throw the ball. He's had a few quarterback starts. I kind of like him this year because Dennis Allen does, and he doesn't like anybody.
Yeah, I'm in a best ball draft that somebody just drafted him specifically because he can fill 6 of the 8 roster spots in a best ball league. I'm like, well, that makes sense. I don't know why I never thought about that, because why not? Dang, I really should have did that in Super League. So running back premium. So like, although he's technically not he's a tight end, so he wouldn't get the extra running back point. Never mind. Still, it's a good option. So, okay, so I'm number 2. I don't think I'm going to snipe anyone on this pick. So I'm going to go Adonai Mitchell. He's not going to be somebody you're going to draft in a short league, redraft league. But right now, he's going to be wide receiver 2. I think as we get into the season, you're going to see Josh Downs move into the slot position where we all anticipate him being. Alec Pierce is actually technically taking wide receiver 2 snaps. But I think once the season really gets going, Adonai Mitchell is going to take over that slot, and he's going to be opposite of Michael Pittman Jr., and we're going to see the light version of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins right there. Just right up 74 into Indianapolis. That's going to be the new wide receiver 1 and 2 matchup right there. So,
all right,
Adonai Mitchell.
I'm going tight end as well. Cade Otton out of Tampa Bay. I do like him
in Tampa Bay. I guess.
Well, the third one will
you just
be
know a lot of
oh my God. I have inside information. No, this one's pretty cut and dry. Liam Cohen is the new offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. We saw how they utilize their tight end in Los Angeles. I do like Cade Otton as a prospect. I do like him as a player. I do expect his role to increase a little bit. I think he had about 65 targets last year. I'd like to see him use more in the red zone, get more of those touchdown targets from Baker Mayfield, but unfortunately that's Mike Evans' territory. Cade Otton's not going to win you any leagues. He's not going to be the Isaiah Likely of your league, but he's going to give you solid weeks, and he could be a spot starter if you choose to punt tight end.
Yeah, if you need to draft 2 tight ends to run your season because
I'm just saying if you punt
then,
tight end and you just drafted a nobody and you're just playing the weeks, if you're streaming tight ends, he could be an easy streaming target against a weaker defense.
Yeah,
there we go.
Agreed.
Next one won't be a buck, I promise.
All right. I'm gonna break the mold a little bit. This one is for my redraft super friends. So Superflex League backup quarterback Joe Flacco. We just bemoaned the injury risk in Indianapolis at the quarterback position with Anthony Richardson.
It hurts, Tommy.
I'm sorry, man.
We're going back and forth here, man. You said JT's great. You said good things about Anthony Richardson. Yeah. I said great thing about Evan Ingram. I trashed Christian Kirk, and you're like, forget Anthony Richardson. We're going Joe Flacco.
If Anthony Richardson makes it through back-to-back football games, maybe I'll back off of this take a little bit. But Joe Flacco was the QB6 overall in points per game last year, and that may have been a ceiling outcome. But like I said, I'm looking at players who can elevate well beyond their current ADP. And in Superflex leagues, I think Joe Flacco is one of the very few backup quarterbacks that I want to put at the end of my redraft roster.
I drafted Jameis Winston last week, so it's
not
cool to draft. See, Justin, we think outside the box. Get on our level.
I agree with you on Jameis Winston. Don't.
He's gonna rush scramble.
Jameis Winston starts.
Who's the backup quarterback for
Mac Jones?
Actually, I was gonna say Mac Jones. No. So, do I do it? Tommy? Should I do it? I'm gonna take Trey Palmer. I have no reason to take Trey Palmer, but I heard from an inside source that he is the wide receiver too. Since Chris Godwin is getting moved into the slot position, he's going to be a better target for Baker Mayfield, and he'll do great this year.
He'll split targets with that other kid, and it'll be super annoying. You won't want to start either of them. So
no.
But
do you want me to give you an actual a real pick?
Yeah, give me a real pick, you jerk.
Okay, I was just being a jerk because I wanted to snipe you. I'm looking at this, and I was, when we were doing the duds, I was like, I don't want to be too obvious with the duds, because there's not a lot of great people in the South that are like, you're either really good or you're just a dud. So finding a sleeper is actually pretty tough. If I'm not gonna lie, and now that I'm going back through this list, you know what? Screw it. Brian Thomas Jr., you're not gonna draft him to be a starter at the start of the season, because a lot of people don't like to draft rookies in short drafts. So he could be a wide receiver that you could target. That, again, he's not the wide receiver 1 right now. I don't even think he's technically the wide receiver 2 according to ESPN. So he could be a guy that you get now in the last round of the draft that ends up doing really well. We forget about how good he was at LSU, and he's going to go to an offense with Trevor Lawrence, who is supposed to be like the greatest quarterback of all time when he came out of the draft. He's not. I'm sorry, Tommy. I hope we can agree on this, but yeah, I'll take Brian Thomas Jr. since Christian Kirk is obviously a dud.
You can get my last sleeper at ADP running back 44, and he's going to start the season as the starting running back because Jonathan Brooks is going to miss time. Chuba Hubbard is the person you need to target, period, in all of your drafts late, because he could be a situation where he doesn't not give the job up, but it's going to be a lot hard. It could be a situation.
He'll be the veteran that's going to give the rookie a challenge.
What I'm saying is, he's not like he's a super stud, but it can give you 10, 12 points a game, and it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine because of where you draft him super late. And now let's say Brooks doesn't come in and doesn't light the world on fire. He does need a little bit more time, whatever. You just got yourself a starting running back in the last round of your draft. That's what I would do. I made the error in my first draft. I made the stupid error. I picked 11th. The guy at 12 picked, Dirtbag Dave picked Bijan Robinson at his first pick. 12th, he was 12th. He took Bijan Robinson. It's a super flex. It got down to the very last 2 rounds, and he's got that turn on me. And I was like, okay, it's time to take backup running backs. I took Algier first because like he's got Bijan, but boom, he's got Brooks, so he took Chuba. I'm like, I'd rather have Chuba over Algier because of that situation. I didn't time that out right. I forgot I was playing with a professional. But honestly, in that situation, let me ask you then, Chuba or Algier? Because you're big on Algier. It's your first pick, and I finished the draft with Chuba, so it's easy to talk about. Who would you rather take?
It depends on how you build your team, right? So I'm assuming going into week 1, 2, 3 that I'm going to have enough healthy, warm bodies at the running back position where I'm not going to need to overcome a lot of injury risk. But if I'm going really deep, 0 RB, knowing that at some point Bucky Irving is going to be a thing, and I just need to fill a spot with Chuba Hubbard, I'll lean Chuba in that situation. But that's just not typically how I construct teams, especially in redraft, because there's too many startable running backs to begin the year.
I agree. 1000%. So that's the show, guys. That's the NFC and AFC South. Who are your duds if you're watching? Who are your studs? Who was the best draft pick in our sleeper draft? I personally think it was Sean Tucker. I'm just going to give myself the award. If you had the stickers like we'd have on the draft day, best pick, right? Me. Worst pick, Bucky Irvin. I'll just put it on the board. Tommy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast. Where can we find you again? Let everyone know.
Yeah, thanks for having me, y'all. At FFTommyB on Twitter, Superflex Super Show, and Dynasty Junkies, both dropping every single week in your podcast feed. Give it a follow.
Yes, give it a follow. I'm going to follow it right after the show. Call to action, like, subscribe, share. Follow Tommy on social media. Follow Justin, who's retweeted by Kay Adams. Congratulations, I guess. That's awesome. I wish I was cool as you. Jose Canseco follows me. So, I mean, I guess I got that.
John Cena follows you too, doesn't he?
And John Cena follows me as well. Yeah, I love John Cena. Make sure you follow us everywhere. OUSFF Pod, X, YouTube. Thank you for the Finstock Sports Network for having us. It's been a blast. We will be back Friday. I don't know what we're doing Friday, but we discussed it. We'll be here live at noon. We're having debates. We're having showdowns. So, Tommy, we're having showdowns.
We won't be here live. We're
not going to be here live, but we're recording Friday.
Yes.
See y'all. Wait, I didn't hit this. Hold on. Sorry. I got to do it again.
You didn't. We'll be back next week on Wednesday to talk about who's next. North, South, East. the East divisions. So
We're doing the East divisions.
this is all you,
Eagles.
Josh.
We're doing the Eagles. We're doing the Giants. We're doing the who else is in the East?
Cowboys, Commanders,
the
Dolphins,
Cowboys.
Patriots, Jets, and Bills.
Bills. So check in if you're a fan of those. I'm a fan of the Dolphins. We're on the Fins Talk Sports Network, so you better show up.
Better
See
be a
you
big
guys
week.
next week, man. Peace out.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. Follow on X and Instagram at OUSFFPOD. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.